Hello. We're entitled to control our own lives and also our own sanity. This is our right. Our souls have rights too, and our survival depends upon ourselves and on attainment of brotherhood within the universe. Tonight, Scientology.
My name is Georgina Roberts. I'm 25 years old. I'm a second-generation Scientologist. I'm an actress, and I find the use of Scientology in my life and in my career an absolute lifesaver.
My name is MURIE Cheshire. I was born in Scotland in 1921. I'm a retired businesswoman, and I've been involved in Scientology for 28 years.
I'm Dr. Edward HAMLYN. I'm 77 years of age. I'm a founder member of the Royal College of General Practitioners, and I came into Scientology in 1969.
I'm LIZZY CALCIOLI. I'm 32 years old. I'm a second-generation Scientologist. I'm a wife and mother of 5.
I'm Ken ECKERSLEY. I'm 71 years old, and I've been a Scientologist for 47 years, and very lucky to have been one because I've had a wonderful career.
My name is SHEILA BULGER, and I'm a Canadian. I'm 47 years old, I'm a wife and a mother, and I've been involved in Scientology for 24 years.
Okay, so can I start with you, Lizzie? What's the very best thing about being a Scientologist?
Oh, it's where to start? What a question. Scientology. I would like to tell you what Scientology is, first of all, from me. What Scientology is Scientology is a religion. And it's a religion because it addresses the spiritual being, doesn't it?
Completely.
And it addresses trying to improve, and we strive and follow a path in order to achieve greater spiritual awareness. And Scientology is really not something to be believed. It's something that we use and apply in our daily lives.
In what way? Okay, you're walking down the street on an average day.
Yeah.
How does that occur in a Scientological way, in a way that I wouldn't? If I'm shopping, okay, I don't shop in a Scientological manner,
Right.
but do you?
I suppose, without thinking about it, I suppose I would, in that I would make sure that I was in really very good communication with the people in the shop, that, and I'm very much aware of myself, and I wouldn't be looking at the things in the shop as, you know, objects to be possessed. I suppose if things made me feel better or feel happier, then they would be possessions that I would want. But I would probably shop with a different viewpoint. But that's just like a question. It's like the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? What makes you happy about Scientology?
The thing is that it's not as we have a specific method of shopping, nothing like that. We don't go, no, I'm going to walk down the street. Nothing like that, but you're very much in communication and aware of other individuals and other areas of your life as a relation as a whole. So therefore, you know, you make sure that, and we have a very good code of honour and a very good code of integrity, and that's very important. So you wouldn't naturally be, you know, try to be polite to people and very nice and value other people's, you know, just the fact that they're around you and what they're doing.
The main thing, well, I speak for myself here, that it's given me is tremendous certainty, tremendous confidence in myself. I know I can make my own decisions and live my own life. And so even if it was as simple an activity as shopping, I doubt anybody's going to put anything over on me in a sales patter type thing, you see. And I feel I can confront any of these circumstances with equanimity.
I think one uses it, as you said just now, in daily life. Even sometimes you don't realise you're using it, but you do. I mean, for instance, talking about shopping, the other day I was in our Sainsbury's, local Sainsbury's, and there's nearly always a little child crying its heart out for something or other. in Sainsbury's, and that really, probably because I'm a great-grandmother myself, and I've got 4 gorgeous great-grandchildren, and I adore them, but I just hate to hear a child crying in anguish, and possibly the mother too busy with the shopping to do anything about it. And I have done this quite a number of times. We have things called assists, and they will even work on small children and babies. Very simple. You take the child's hand, you get it to touch something, and it takes their mind or their attention off this thing that's bugging them and making them cry so terribly.
So did you do that to the child in Sainsbury's?
Oh, yes. Yes, I've done that many a time.
And did the mother not say, because it's a
No,
suspicious
no,
society
not at
we're
all.
living in now, did the mother not say, what you're doing with me?
No, she was very glad.
Quite grateful.
Oh, that's great. I said, well, you can do that yourself at home.
So I don't know if somebody would be kind of, because it's a very complex thing, Scientology, and I was wondering, could somebody who's good at explaining in very layman's terms what exactly Scientology is, how you differ from others?
First of all, it's not complex. That's not true.
But there's words which I don't know, like thetan.
Yes, but that's just, there are words in every approach to knowledge, in every body of knowledge. It has its own special world. It's like in biology, for instance. And it's the same thing here. Mr. Hubbard was the first person ever to properly define the nature of humanity and to recognize the spiritual nature of man, and that spirit used a mind to control the activities of a physical body to achieve an effect in the physical universe. Now, there we start with the fundamentals, and it's those fundamentals which, when you bear them in mind, which make Scientology uncomplicated. One begins to see how important relationships are, and communication and other factors, emotions and so on, in respect of one's relationships with other people.
I mean, thetan purely means what spirit or what you.
Yourself.
Right, but different,
Simplify it.
different from the body.
Okay.
And the word Scientology, I think it's important for you to possibly know what the definition is. It's not nothing to do with science. I think a lot of people think because it starts with SCIE, it's not. It's Sceo, from the Latin of knowledge, and it's the study of knowledge, basic knowledge, and that's what Ron Hubbard did. He really went down to the nitty-gritty of the nature of man all over the world.
Can I ask you, just out of curiosity, Murie, when you did that thing with the child with the hand in Sainsbury's, did you say to the mother, that's something I learnt as a Scientologist?
Yes, I did.
And what did she say, the mother?
She said, thank you. She said, that was great. What did you do? I said, well, it's just called locating the child in the area where it is, because it's obviously crying very hard and it's outside its own area. It doesn't quite know where it is or what it's doing. And it makes them more familiar with the area where it is. And that's a lot of the basis of the assists that you hear about in Scientology.
Sheila, I remember you were telling me about that great assist that you did.
The one on my son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
My son was playing soccer, and he had a bad fall, and he really grazed his arm here, and he came home and he had a long sleeve jersey on, and I touched his arm and he flinched away. So I applied an assist to him because he was a bit in shock and trauma from it because it was quite bad. And it just gave him spiritual relief and minimized the trauma and the shock. And the other thing I noticed is that he was really willing to go back and play soccer again, because sometimes I notice when people get injuries in an area, they withdraw from it because of the trauma, and they don't want to go do it again, and it actually handled him.
And was this because his reactive mind was giving him bad thoughts, negative thoughts, and you transcended his reactive mind, or am I getting mixed up?
I think in a way, he felt like he was having a bit of a loss, because, you know, when you have an injury, it's almost like having a loss, and you feel a bit low because of it. And when you address the spiritual nature and get the individual to look at that, then they can handle it all right or sort it out for themselves and feel fine about it and not have that trauma there. So whatever is impinging on him that's not optimum moves away. So you mentioned reactive mind, and I would just like to explain what that is so that you understand it a bit more. A person has an analytical mind, which we all have and we use, that has our education and our experience in it. And that mind you can make decisions with. It has information in it. It has recordings of things that have happened to you in it. And that is the one that we use most of the time. Now, a reactive mind is a mind that comes about during moments of either full or partial pain and unconsciousness.
You mean reactive mind?
The reactive mind, yes, sorry, thanks.
Okay.
Yes, the reactive mind comes about during those moments of pain and unconsciousness, right? So over the years, people build up this, and they think, well, they don't remember maybe an operation they had, which does have pain and unconsciousness in it, or a car accident that they had where they bumped their head. But the reactive mind does record everything in it, and it can affect you later in life.
And so the idea is to transcend the reactive mind and achieve a state of clear.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I don't think transcend is the right word, really. Is it, Ted? Ted.
I'd like to come in
Yes.
on this assist because
Yes,
before we lose it, okay? Because there's a little booklet that people can read how to do these assists. And I'd like to just tell you a little story because Mr. Hubbard made some very, very good training films for people to watch to see exactly how to do an assist. And one of the training films shows an assist where the person has drowned and been pronounced dead, and a Scientologist comes along and uses an assist, and the person is restored to life. And this is very dramatic. And I'm telling you this because about a year ago, I was up early in the morning. I usually get up about 6 or earlier, and I was halfway downstairs, and I felt very strange, and I went and lay down on the couch in the living room. But I hadn't been there more than a couple of seconds before I realized I wasn't going to be alive much longer. And I somehow managed to get to the front door and rang the front doorbell. We had a nice pull thing which rings a ship's bell, woke up the whole house. And having done that, I promptly dropped dead on the front doorstep.
This happened to you?
Oh my God.
How long ago was this? What, like a few weeks ago? Did you say?
A year ago.
Year ago.
Year ago.
Okay, so you're lying dead on the...
I'm lying dead on the front doorstep, you
Uh-huh.
see? And eventually somebody must have wondered who was at the front door and came down to see and found this corpse on the front doorstep. And my wife, who's a Scientologist and a doctor and has seen this film, immediately did exactly what the Scientologist did in the film, and here I am.
God, that's
Which is
amazing.
So what exactly did she do?
Well, it tells you in the book, you see.
Uh,
I mean, more or less, she said, cut the bullshit, get back in that body, slap my face or whatever. She's really tough cookie, my wife.
and what do you remember about death?
Well, what I remember about it was that I had merely been coming downstairs to write a letter, a very important letter. I've been thinking about it most of the night. And, I suddenly realized, damn, I didn't write that letter before I went,
And how long after you were alive again did you write the letter? Did you go and write it straight away?
I was admitted straight away to the intensive care unit at the hospital, and as soon as I recovered consciousness, I wrote the letter. Bang.
And did you tell them at the hospital that what had happened?
Yeah, but they weren't interested.
Because you don't believe in operations, do you?
Well, of course, the standard thing is for somebody to have major heart surgery after a massive coronary thrombosis like I had, sooner or later you're going to have heart surgery. Well, of course, I chose another route, and I think I'm getting younger by the day,
But you're a GP.
Yes, right.
And you talk people out of surgery. Is that true? And if so, is that difficult?
Well, I don't really try to influence a person's own determinism, but if they ask my advice and they say to me, well, what have you done? You seem to be perfectly okay, and yet you were actually did, you know. How did you manage it, you see? And so I said, well, you know, you can do the same as I've done if you wish. See?
Now,
It's quite amazing, actually,
Yes,
isn't
no,
it?
it is.
Absolutely.
But there are times, I mean, it's not as if none of us have operations or,
No.
you know, if your body needs an operation, then
Yes,
obviously,
Yeah,
you
you've got
know.
a broken leg, it needs putting back
Then
together
there
again.
There are lots of
Oh,
other
yeah.
ways of healing the body, both with Scientology, counselling, and recognising the spiritual being that's in controlling that body, and getting that into a better state will bring the body into a better state. I can tell you stories galore because I'm 77 and I haven't got through to 77 without having a few body complaints here and there. But I must say, sitting here right now, that I have taken no drugs. I haven't had an aspirin for 25 years or more.
We've got to remember, you see, that the spirit is senior to the body, in the same way as the driver is senior to the car. Now, if you have a car that's constantly getting the front right wing bashed in on the gate post, don't look at the car, look at the driver. And if we can improve the ability of the driver, which is what Scientology is about, it's the business of increasing, taking the able and making them more able, then we're not going to have wrecked cars, and we're not going to have wrecked bodies. Bodies can be handled better by an able spiritual being. It's that simple.
So once you, I know transcend was the wrong word, but attaining a state of clear is when have you all absolutely attained a state? Are there levels to
Yes.
clear?
Yes, there's
There
set
are
things that
steps.
you do in auditing.
And do you know, out of you lot, who's the most clear? Is that how it works?
Well,
No,
clear is
Clear is
clear.
one step.
So clear is you're just absolutely clear. That's
Yes,
it.
that's right.
One
And
can't
it
be a
is-
little bit clearer than
No,
another.
there are
No,
levels above
it's-
clear.
Nice way to
There
put
are
it.
levels above clear which are
It's-
not clearing. They are.
Yes,
Let's
let's
just
just
stick
do
to
the
clear.
clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so the clear, just to make it very simple, is just a representation of the word. A person is cleared of all their unwanted conditions, phobias, unwanted emotions, and upsets that have occurred to them, and they're cleared of them. So that makes sense. So
the
that's
the
a
reactive
clear.
mind is
Then they're more themselves. They can be more themselves. They can be more in control of their own life. And by having done that, they have achieved greater spiritual level, haven't they?
What's the
Yes.
very highest spiritual level of all you can attain?
There's
It's
no such
something
thing
called-
as absolutes are unattainable, is a saying. And I think that covers that, because there are, we believe, or I believe, and I think we all do, that there are very, very high states attainable that man can attain to. But I don't think this is the programme to go into that.
We'll do another one and we'll talk about that.
But you do talk about, these levels, and I mean, you could liken it to Buddhism. I mean,
those
the
exact
fact is,
steps.
those are, in Buddhism, you are looking for spiritual awareness and to become more great as a spirit.
Exactly.
And all L. Ron Hubbard has done is actually westernised it to the degree that it's very practical, and there are certain steps you do to attain that.
Clear is specifically clear in terms of what we call the first dynamic, the individual. And we specify 8 dynamics, and one goes on beyond clear, going further and further along, improving on all those dynamics, the dynamic of family, the dynamics of groups, the dynamics of mankind, of other life forms, of the physical universe, the spiritual universe, and the 8th dynamic, the God dynamic, and therefore the Supreme Being. And therefore there are levels to advance through beyond clear. Clear is just for me, or for you.
You have Dianetics and you have Scientology, and there are different, they are very different things, aren't they?
I mean, I think it's like, we're asked to, what do we love about Scientology,
Yes.
right? And I find that, well, I'm going to go back in time a little bit here. When I was about 16, I was brought up as a Scientologist. My parents were Scientologists,
And
right?
didn't your parents work with L. Ron Hubbard?
Yes, they did. And I reached the age of 16 and I really decided, I thought, OK, I'm going to go up to London and seek my fortune. And off I went on my merry way. And within 2 years, I was like, I was just not me anymore. I still called myself a Scientologist because I still considered I was, but I was definitely doing things that I wasn't proud of and I didn't like. And
Like what?
oh, men. Those things, you know. Basically that, and you know, parties and champagne and, you know, nightclubs and whatever. But basically, it was the male species was definitely my downfall in life. I would fall in love. I'd fall madly in love, right? And then I'd fall madly in love with someone else. But my problem was I'd often forget to tell the one before that I wasn't in love with them anymore. And this led to some difficulties. Anyway, one night I was collected in this very nice white Rolls Royce, as you are, and taken to this penthouse suite of a very nice London hotel. And
so it was a high calibre of men you were...
Oh, yes, most high. I don't deal in you. Actually, a bit of a mixture, to be honest, a bit of a mixture, yeah. And I got to this penthouse suite, and there was a great big glass dining room table, really nice. And on it was laid out row after row after row of cocaine, very nicely, with little crisp £50 notes rolled up next to each one, right? And would you like some, Lizzie? I said, no, thank you. And I thought, oh, my God, what am I doing here, right? It really hit me that night of like, what am I doing here? Get me out of here, right? These guys, I mean, these were like owners of multinational companies and whatever, and it was like, this was their recreation. What was I doing being part of this? This wasn't me, you know, and it literally dawned on me. It was like, I am a spiritual being, and I'm pretending to be something that I'm not. And one thing I'm, you know, really thankful for is that my parents very much educated me in what drugs do, and I never took drugs at all. But obviously I was moving in the circles that were. And I went back to the Church of Scientology within a week of that, and I very much wanted some help, because I knew that if I kept going that route, I was going to end up really doing something that I would regret. And I was already beginning to hate myself, like big time hate myself. And I had the help at the Church of Scientology that was fantastic. And quite honestly, within my first counselling session, my first auditing session, I found out why I was doing these things. And I was 18, nearly 19 years old. And it just went. All my problems to do with the male species disappeared, right?
So what were you doing then? What did you learn that day?
Oh, it was to do with, I mean, without getting too specific, it wasn't because of what was happening to me this lifetime, because I very much believe in that I have been around for a long time. It was because of something that happened a long time ago. And as soon as I confronted it and got into communication with what I had done then, it was like, not a problem. And I mean, I've now been married 12 years, since not long after that. And I have 5 kids, and quite honestly, I don't even check out people these days.
So a specific incident in a previous life had occurred which led you to that specific incident with the cocaine in the penthouse.
Isn't that amazing, though?
And that's where the reactive mind takes play. It is all those past incidents that have, unfortunately, have effect on you. You know, why you have compulsive behaviour, why do you suddenly feel depressed when you don't want to, why do you feel you can't communicate? That's not you. That's sort of this baggage. And within auditing, which is, I suppose you could call counselling, but it is not the same thing, where auditing comes from a Latin means just to listen.
Auditing is when the Scientologists stand outside the shops and ask you to come in.
No. Auditing is something completely different. Auditing is Latin, which means...
I apologise for that.
No, don't worry.
Spiritual guidance.
It's basically spiritual guidance, and it is in a situation where you are really doing all the work. I mean, there's somebody there, but they listen. And what happens is you see something that is affecting you, for example, past lives. And that's where it's lovely, because you think, well, that's incredible, I was never a maid, or I never did that. And then what happens is you have an upset now, and then you go back and you see it's linked to that, and you look at that, and suddenly that goes. So there must be some truth there, because you're alleviated.
About absolute specifics here. This is a very specific incident that occurred to me in a past life. So can I hear some specific past life incidents?
I don't know about everyone else, but I really find it incredibly personal to
Yes.
talk about.
Yeah.
And it's like sort of,
It's
no,
not
I
terribly
wouldn't.
real to a lot
No.
of people.
Exactly, it
You know,
isn't.
the concept.
Go on, you were going to
Arguably
say.
very real from a
Go on.
doctor's surgery. It's an ordinary surgery, you see. I have a new patient, for example, comes in, and part of the interview inevitably is taking a history. And if I ask the patient, you know, well, when did you start feeling poorly? You know, when were you last well, and when did your life change and you began to become poorly? You see, and they'll perhaps give me a date, and I'll say, well, what happened then? You see, well, nothing. See, well, have another look. What happened then? Oh, well, that was when somebody died. You see, and I'll say to them, well, did that upset you? And the patient in front of me then is in tears, and I know jolly well it upset them. And the patient, when the patient comes into the room, they look grey and tired, and you know, they just don't look very well at all. But they're in tears. They're into their mother's death. I mean, they're sitting in it, right there in the surgery, you see. And I will immediately take it up and handle it, you know. And as I handle it, I see the colour come back in their cheeks. I see them get younger in front of my very eyes, you know. And by the end of the time that I've handled it, even if their mother died 20 years ago, they've been stuck in misery and grief ever since. And you get them to look at it and get rid of it. And what they came for is gone, you know. And they go out rejoicing. And you know, that person, you know, thinks you're wonderful. And all you've done is just do the obvious, really. And they're sort of faithful to you the rest of your life, you know. It's amazing.
I got into Scientology, or got involved with Scientology in Canada, and I was going to university at the time, and I was looking, searching, right? And I had been drinking, and I had smoked some dope, and trying to sort of be like my friends and be accepted by my friends, and this is what they were doing, so I thought that would make me feel happier, but it didn't. And someone asked me to do a personality test, which is a test that is offered that shows you the areas that you're doing good in and the areas you're not doing so good in.
This is the test that
Yes, you thought
Yes.
auditing. No,
yeah,
That's right.
where people, and there's about 200 questions.
right.
Yes,
That's
yeah,
right.
that's it.
So I did that, and when I had it told to me, like the areas that I was doing not so well in or so well in, I was very impressed because it was correct, because I answered the questions, obviously, but it did show me exactly where I was having difficulties. So I wanted spiritual improvement, and then Scientology as a religion seemed to offer that. And so I said, well, what do I do about it to improve myself? And they said, well, there's a course you can do. And I did the course, and I got the spiritual benefit from it. As a spiritual being, I felt like I was rising out of whatever confusions, misunderstandings, and difficulties that I was having, and that I could be more in control on things and decide and not feel pushed around, or that I had to follow the pack. I could really be myself.
Yeah.
And the other thing that question is posed is, it can't be a religion because, you know, you don't have a specific God, but that's not strictly true. We do absolutely believe
we
of
believe.
a supreme being.
Absolutely.
And there have been times when you're having auditing or counselling that you do feel, don't you, that
Yeah.
you're
You understand it, you're getting closer to it.
closer to some sort of
Yeah.
spiritual understanding. I mean, somebody somewhere along put this place here. Whether or not we helped
Created
is,
the universe.
And can I ask,
Exactly, yeah.
can we talk about L. Ron Hubbard, because obviously his name's come up many times. How many of you actually knew him?
We actually met him personally. Ted, you met him, didn't you?
Yes, I met him. I was on the same ship with him.
Was that his ship?
Yes. And I used to see him every day, and he was actually supervising the auditing that I was getting on the ship, actually. And I felt that he was a very wonderful human being. And, you know, what brought it home to me, how real he was that, you know, he had a little dog called Trixie. and Trixie had to be fed on polo mints. He's a very real, genuine, nice man. You know.
Why did Trixie particularly like polo mints?
Who knows? He had a sweet tooth, I suppose.
So, I mean, was he a charismatic man? What was he?
He was
The man who
fascinating.
loved humanity.
Yeah.
That was his basic thing. He wanted to help humanity.
Yeah.
Right from the word go, he looked at it all and realised that man had sunk quite low over the centuries, millenniums or whatever, and the last war, of course, didn't help very much. And but he had done research before that into the human condition, and that really set him off the war and the results of the war. The men coming back all damaged and put into mental homes, unfortunately. And that's what brought about the book, The Dianetics and Modern Science of Mental Health.
Yeah.
They had done a lot of research before the war and subsequently after the war. Around about 1950, a lot of people asked him to write that book. And he tossed it off in about 3 weeks, I think, wasn't it?
It's
And
2
it became an
inches thick
instant
and all about
bestseller.
the reactive
And
mind.
that is totally in there. Anybody can read that and understand what we're talking about here, reactive mind and the analytical mind, and how the reactive mind is something that can be got rid of. The easy methods that can do it at home, even do it yourself.
That's right.
If you have someone
I
with you.
With that, suddenly, it wasn't that your condition was stayed and that was it. You know, you're not just a meat body, and you have this IQ and you have this intelligence. You can't change.
Exactly.
Suddenly, you were given a way to better yourself and become more you, and that you could change. And I find him, you know, whenever I read anything that he writes, he's so funny.
Yeah.
He's so down to earth, and so right.
He's written something like 60 million words. He's actually written. That's not counting taped lectures. I don't know the statistics on that, but many, many, many.
Okay.
I mean, you could read forever and a day and find something new, the amount of knowledge he has condensed, and the subjects that he covers. This is what I loved about Scientology when I first came into it and heard about it, was this incredible spectrum that it covered, that Ron Hubbard covered for us.
I would like to say something about Mr. Hubbard, because I think that what he's done is to add something on to every religion, you know. So Scientology is a religion of religions, almost. And I'd like to give you a little story, because I remember very, very clearly when I was a little boy at Sunday school, and you know, Church of England, and went to church every Sunday and so forth. And I remember asking the Sunday school teacher if she had any way of helping me to be a good boy, you know, because I never was a good boy and I was always in trouble. And I would have liked to have been a good boy, you see. And the advice that she gave me, she listened very carefully to what I said, and then she said to me, "Edward, you better be good or else." And that was the best advice I ever got from my Christian teaching, you know. But when I came into Scientology, I discovered all sorts of ways in which Mr. Hubbard helped me to become the good boy, which I now am, you know.
And he also said that wisdom and knowledge should never be kept behind closed doors. It should be available and to everybody and anybody who's seeking it and reaching it. And you mentioned just now about going out and bringing people into Scientology. Look at the state of the churches today. Most of them are really not too happy. The fact that people don't walk in their doors. And so the ones that do are the ones who sort of promote it. I mean, this is nearly the year 2000, and promotion doesn't need to be a dirty word.
Yeah, and it's also you're one religion with a lot of very famous converts.
Well, I mean, you have celebrities, absolutely. But I suppose that, like anybody, they've seen something that makes sense to them that they can use.
But do you think that? But do you think that helps? Do you think having people like John Travolta Do you think it helps? So you don't think Tom Cruise fans will look at Scientology?
Do you know what?
Well, they may or may not. I just don't really know what the statistics would be on that.
People admire somebody who, you know, to them creates wonderful theatre or wonderful film, and he feels, because he absolutely does use his position, and rightly so, because he has a place to stand and say, listen, you see me on, you see me on screen, and I have something I want to tell
and
you.
he truly believes in Scientology.
Yes.
He practices it daily himself.
Do you ever watch a Tom Cruise movie or John Travolta movie and notice Scientological...
Oh, sometimes.
Like, give me an example.
Oh, I don't... Well, funnily enough, they had Grease on not long the other day, and I used to admire his acting, his dancing. I love dancing, I love music and rhythm of all kinds, etc., etc. And it was quite interesting to see this film just the other day, because not long ago I was in America, and at one of our headquarters there in Florida, and John Travolta visited on Sunday. It's a big family day there. They have barbecues and pool around the Sandcastle Hotel there. And he and his wife and the little boy were visiting. But, I mean, nobody went, whoa, John Travolta, blah, 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 you know. He's just accepted as another Scientologist.
Yeah.
And all very friendly.
And I think
in fact, I bumped into him going through the swing doors, I was going out and he was coming in with his wife and child. And I was very thrilled, because it was rather nice to be so close to him. And because he was who he was, the being. And he has got, we talk about beingness, but it's quite a simple word. It's being who you are, you know, and granting other people to be who they are.
Yeah.
That's a very important thing in our creed. And he had that. He granted me beingness, elderly lady going through the door saying, ooh, you know.
we mustn't miss the point here that Scientology helps the able become more able.
Exactly.
And these people have stellar careers.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise and John, all these people have stellar careers
Christiane.
because they have adopted Scientology as a study and as a religion. And their success is based on, look the way John, for instance, his career went up, it went down, he became a Scientologist, and look at the heights of John Travolta's career today. And it isn't just celebrities of the arts, celebrities of sports, for instance, the world motorcycle champion.
Can't be just coincidence.
It's not just coincidence that these people are doing so well, and it applies to all of us in greater or smaller ways.
Absolutely.
We get better, we improve, people look at us and say, oh, this guy's doing well, what are you doing? In some cases they say, what are you taking? You know?
What are you on?
and it's Scientology.
So, I mean, we don't qualify that as success if you're, you know, to the heights of John Travolta. Somebody who, for example, Lizzie's a housewife, or, you know, if you're living happily in your own personal life.
She's a very successful mother.
You know,
We know
that is
that.
just as valuable.
I find that, I mean, like we're talking about John Travolta using it, or you using it. I mean, I've got 5 kids, right? It's a madhouse, absolute madhouse. 4 boys and a little baby girl, right? And I find that because of Scientology and because of the works of Mr. Hubbard, it's not a problem. Now, some people find it really hard to believe, but a lot of my friends who are not Scientologists, they can't believe how sort of cool, calm and collected I am with all this, like, whoa, footballs flying over my head from cooking dinner and stuff like that. I mean, I think of my kids as what they are. They are spiritual beings. That's what they are. They've got little bodies, and these little bodies are going to grow into bigger bodies. And that's the way I view it, and I know all of you view it.
And were you born a Scientologist?
Well, I was like Lizzie. My mother's a Scientologist. She was a single parent, and she found Scientology in Holland. And she found Dianetics, actually, and she was fascinated because she said for the first time she found something that addressed the mind and, you know, and what it was. And so she looked at it very intellectually, so that's by the by. And I was brought up as a Scientologist, but funnily enough, people say to me, they always say that, yes, but because you were brought up as a Scientologist, obviously you had no determination and you've been brainwashed and all that sort of stuff, which is not true. I have 2 very distinct memories. When I was about 7, I remember asking my mother, I said, because you're a Scientologist, do I have to be one? You know, expecting, yes, of course. And she said, well, of course I'd love you to use Scientology, because I love you and I know it works. She said, but it's completely up to you. And I remember that, and I really remember that. And when I was about 14, I hit teenagehood, and suddenly I grew breasts, and physically I, you know, had urges, and mentally I didn't know what was going on, you know, my body overtook me, and men and boys and things like that. And I was really unhappy because I didn't know how to control it. There was I with this body and doing all this stuff, and I didn't know what to do. And so that was at the point when I thought, I'm going to put Scientology to the test now. I'm going to really see if it works. And I applied some of the information L. Ron Hubbard talks about on ethics, and I applied them, and suddenly...
Give me an example before you...
For an example? Okay, well, you can see that everybody's in a condition, how they are, and I wasn't in a particularly happy condition. So I looked at the condition I was in, and I took certain steps to enable myself to get better. And there are certain steps, very simple.
They're all
steps,
written out by
all written out,
Exactly.
you know. For example, if you're in a dangerous situation and you're just, you know, and something continually keeps happening to you, probably the first thing to do is to stop doing that particular thing. Now, that sounds so simple, but actually we don't do it. A lot of us don't do that. So there was I, oh, men, oh, boys, oh, and all that sort of stuff. So I really had to look at what I was doing that wasn't really right and stop it, and that enabled me to do that. And I, as you say, I started to drive my life. And I didn't turn out, because actually, in all honesty, if I didn't have Scientology, I'd probably be some sort of hooker or something on the side. No, but no, that's not to say in a bad way, but I mean, I don't think I would have been what I am now. And I became finally happy with myself, and I became in control, and I was the person I wanted to be. But that was so personal to me, and then from that point onwards, I called myself a Scientologist, and it was by no means an external influence.
But does that mean that ethically being a teenager and
Yeah.
sleeping around a lot is wrong? Is that...
No, because listen, I was unhappy. That's the whole point. I myself, as an individual, was unhappy. I wasn't in communication with my friends. I felt terrible. Because, I mean, let's honestly say sleeping around isn't particularly a very survival thing to do, because you could possibly catch things. I mean, you know, we could all discuss that, but that's by and by. I personally didn't feel happy. So therefore, I personally wanted to do something about it.
That is the main thing. What you're saying is totally correct. It's the person themselves. It's not the viewpoint you have on what other people want you to do or should do or what you think they should do. It starts off as being very, very personal. If you are unhappy doing what you're doing or living the way you're living, you should feel something should be done about it. Change is indicated.
No.
And it's even looking at something
I
else.
must be allowed to speak here on the question of morals.
Yes,
As a doctor, I've really had a rough ride, because when I was a student, many years ago, if one had anything to do at all with procuring an abortion on a woman, you'd be in danger of going to prison. And then very suddenly, overnight, one could find oneself as a doctor unable to get work unless one was prepared to terminate a pregnancy. Now that is a total about-face on a moral issue determined by an Act of Parliament. So that it shows that morals are not really very reliable, and they tend to be just a question of fashion.
Absolutely.
And if Ron gave us the real data on ethics, which I think is of enormous value to us today with the problems of law and order and so forth, you know. I think it's wonderful what he's given us in that field.
Is it a religion that allows debate? Do you have to be absolutely certain that what he wrote was correct? For instance, I'm Jewish, and debate is a very big part of
I'm
Judaism.
Jewish as well.
Right. So you know. So
I'm Jewish. I'm a nice Jewish girl. My parents were Scientologists. So, I mean, you look at it, right? And I went to, you know, I used to go to shul, I'd go to all the mitzvahs and all the weddings, right? But it was totally... The thing about Scientology that's so incredible is that it doesn't tell you to change those beliefs at all,
doesn't clash.
right? It doesn't clash, and if anything, it just gives you more data, more information to think with and apply in your life, right?
now, your parents worked as PR officers for L. Ron Hubbard, which must have actually been quite difficult because he did get at times a very bad PR. Why do you think there's been so much antagonism towards the church throughout its history?
Very simple.
Very simple.
Scientology makes the able more able, and quite incidentally, it makes the disabled well. And we're cutting right across the income lines and the interest lines of a tremendous number of vested interests in this world, from the great power of the drug companies through to the simple doctor. Psychiatry especially is a field where we make people well incidentally. We don't even set out to do it. In my own life, for instance, my brother was cured of asthma by Dianetics. In my own life, my wife would have been incapable of having children had it not been for Scientology. But, you know, we set out to help my wife, to help my brother become more able people. And as a result, they lost their disabilities. Now, look what we're doing to people who make money out of disabilities. And there are a lot of people who make money out of even enhancing the complexity and difficulty of disability. And they go on year after year after year making money. Scientology cuts across that. And Mr. Hubbard has been condemned because he was not helping other people by taking away their living. What living? Pretending to make people well? That's what he was stopping happening, you see.
So you think, I mean, let me get this specific. Do you think there's an actual conspiracy between the medical industry, for instance, and the media industry? Do you think it has been? I mean, is persecution too strong a word, or do you feel you've been persecuted?
All the time, absolutely. It can make you very angry, and you just don't like it.
I got more of a hard time at school for being Jewish than I did for being a Scientologist.
But you
I didn't. I got a lot of hard time.
Yeah.
I really was
what did they used
just
to say
so bored.
to you?
You're brainwashed, you worship tomatoes and things. I mean, I was just like saying, please.
I never got any of that, Georgina.
No, really. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And I just would say, well, look at me. You're my friend. Would you consider me to be, to a degree, an intelligent individual? You would? Right. So therefore, why would I be worshipping a tomato? You know, if you can value my judgment and say, oh, Georgina, is there a car over there? Should I cross the road? If you can trust me to that degree, then why can't you think that I could be able to go, oh, well, that sounds interesting. I think I'll work and use that. You know, and I just, it's the ignorance that really is very annoying.
The question, was there a conspiracy of the press and these powerful influences? The answer is, I wouldn't know, but one thing I can be certain about, anybody is going to defend his own turf. It is going to create controversy. And what does the press live on? They live on controversy.
And a lack of understanding. A lot of the bad PR that Scientologists received would never have happened if the people who did it would take the trouble to really find out a bit more about it and get to understand it, what it's all about. You do?
Scientology has not been put under the microscope.
Not
Other
enough, to
people's
some degree.
opinions of Scientology have been put under the microscope.
That's actually true.
Scientology has
That's very
never been fully revealed to the general
that's true.
public or the press. Nobody has ever come and bothered to look at it. The greatest threat that Scientology poses to isms and ologies that don't work is the fact that Scientology does work. It works time and time again for a vast variety of people over many years and in many instances. And it works in the field of education. It works in the field of health. It works in the field of mental health. It works in the field of spiritual enlightenment. And in fact, that is the key to the success of Scientology.
Do you think this programme has helped?
I think it's wonderful, I have to say.
Think so,
It's just lovely.
It's nice to be sitting here and talking about what we have experienced. Very nice.
Because very interesting enough, I find that somebody goes to me, you know, I talk to them and I start a relationship with them as a friend, and then they go, and I say, oh, you know, I'm a Scientologist, and they go, you're a Scientologist? But you're so nice and normal, and you think, what, you see what I mean? So here, we're just being very relaxed, and people can see that we're normal people who just want to help ourselves, that's all. So,
And others.
On that basis, I moved into a new neighborhood, and I met the next door neighbor, who was very nice. I invited her over for lunch, and we had a nice lunch together. At the end of the lunch, she said to me, I can't believe how calm you are, how confident you are. And for me, I was surprised, because, you know, you don't often look at yourself like that. But to her, she could see it. She could experience it. There was something different about me. I wasn't stressed out or running around or didn't know what I was doing. She could see that I was okay to communicate with.
And did you say that's because I'm a Scientologist? Or
Absolutely.
And what did she say?
She said, oh, good, yeah, I knew you were one.
And I'm very proud to be here and say, hey, I'm a Scientologist, and I really, it means more to me, really. It just means so much to me.
And I'm sorry to be quite so self-regarding as I am, but...
Please do.
Please do, you're absolutely entitled to.
Thank you. Is that a rule? Is that okay? No, to say, I know that there was some cautiousness, and I understand why. But before, you know, when we invited you onto this programme, there was some cautiousness, and I take it because of the amount of antagonism there's been in the past. But I mean, were you all personally worried and
Not at
cautious?
all. I mean, it was, we were just asked and we came.
I think we'll find that we were absolutely delighted.
Such a strong belief in the wonderful things that can be done with Scientology for individuals, for groups, whatever. That it take a lot more than
just one bit of. That's exactly what we're here expressing.
Yes,
really.
and we're pretty strong in our belief in, as Ken said, in the truth of things, and truth has a way of solving things and coming out no matter what.